What is the greatest comeback to an insult you've ever heard? Story 1. My grandparents used to bicker, and my grandmother generally came out on top, as she was fiercer. One time though, she was asking him to do a bunch of stuff, and he muttered, "If you'd lose some weight, you could do it yourself." She fixed her gaze on him and glowered, "I'm thinking of getting rid of about 200 pounds of useless fat immediately." He replied, "You're going to cut off your foot." Story 2. Someone yelled out in a Walmart, "I'm not ashamed of who I am." Another voice echoed back, "That's your parents' job."
This isn't a comeback to an insult, but rather an insulting comeback.
Of course it's Walmart. It's always fucking Walmart. Walmart is the Florida of store brands.
I wonder what makes a Walmart in Florida then.
I live in Central Florida. If you want to see some interesting folks who look like they might have escaped from Dr. Moreau's Beast Island, then venture into a 24-hour super Walmart after 1 a.m. Be afraid. Be very afraid.
Story 3. A stand-up comedian the other day, and he says something along the lines of, "The first time I had sex it was terrible," and a woman chimes in with, "You mean yesterday?" Crowd laughs for a while, and while the comedian is waiting for them to calm down, you can see the gears turn in his head. Once it gets down to basically a few chuckles, he just says, "Glad you remember," and the crowd just lost their shit. It was amazing.
Not gonna lie, she had him in the first half.
Reminds me of years ago. I went to a comedy club and one act was awful, nothing but crude, unintelligent nonsense, not even ironically. Really not getting any laughs. Friend got up to go for a piss. Comedian started picking on him, asking where he was going, why he was going in the middle of his act, etc. Friend told him he was going for a piss, couldn't help it as he had prostate cancer. Silence fell. Comedian asked, "Really?" To which my friend replied, "No, it's a joke. You should try telling one sometime." I don't wish to be that guy, but genuinely, everyone laughed and clapped. I'm looking forward to seeing this on.
Story 4. I used to work with this 70-year-old woman. She was our supervisor, and one day one of the ladies who worked with us told this old lady to kiss my ass, and the old lady replied, "Where do I start? You're so fat your crack goes all the way up your back." Gran, how many times do we have to tell you? We are not a crematorium.
Sorry, dear, but Grandma's gotta scorch a bitch every now and then.
Story 5. A guy makes fun of his bald friend by rubbing his head and saying, "Wow, your head is as smooth as my wife's bottom." The friend also rubs his head and says, "Wow, you're right."
That's a lot of damage.
That's something even flex tape can't fix.
Why do my comebacks always take a week? And they're too twisted in their own logic to work? Then my coworker says, "I'm proud of you for trying." Or he's a little confused, but he's got the spirit.
Story 6. I was the one insulted, but not the one with the comeback. I was out with a coworker and her friends, and my buddy and I were leaving a little too early for her sensibilities. She jokingly got up in my face and said, "Smell that? Smells like pussy." A guy playing at the pool table next to us stepped forward and said, "I'm sorry, that must be me. I just ate." It was amazing. Story 7. My grandma asked my cousin, who'd had lots of partners and 2 kids at this point, if she was ever going to get married. "Cousin, it's not the same nowadays. We don't buy cars without test driving them first." Grandma, "Yeah. But they don't let you put 100,000 miles on them either." Point goes to Granny. Story 8. It was an exchange between 2 coworkers a few years back, basically a slut-shaming gone wrong. Person A had only ever slept with one person, their previous boyfriend that they were still obsessed with. Person B was the opposite and would bang a different person every week. Person A, "I can't believe how many people you've slept with. I don't understand how people can have sex with someone they aren't in love with." Person B, "Well, your ex-boyfriend seemed to manage it okay." Person A, silence as he dies inside.
Did you call 911 to report the brutal fucking murder you witnessed?
Seems like 2 people fucked pass on A without loving them.
Story 9. If you weren't so stupid, what would you be? Asks the husband. The wife replies, without even skipping a beat. Single. Story 10. Definitely a great comeback, but not to an insult, more to an annoyance. I was a camp counselor for a few years at a summer camp. One day my group took a hike to a large rock where we had lunch. My campers were between 8 and 10 years old. This one kid, we'll call Jeff, keeps poking another kid, we'll call Matt, in my group to look at this hole in the rock. It's so cool, it's like 6 inches deep, and the other kid is clearly getting annoyed just trying to eat his lunch. He keeps shoving sticks into the hole and trying to get everybody to look at it. Finally, Matt just puts down his sandwich, looks at Jeff, and goes, "I'll be 6 inches deep in your mom later if you don't shut up." I was trying so hard to be stern with this kid for saying something so inappropriate, but I kept cracking up. It was just such a disproportionately ridiculous thing to say coming from a 9-year-old. Story 11. My brother was in his history class that just happened to have accumulated all the really disruptive and not so intelligent kids. They'd constantly interrupt and make the class hell, and the teacher didn't really do anything about it. One day, a girl who had caused a ton of problems acted up in the usual way to derail the class, and he had had enough. He turned to her and told her to shut up, and she flipped. The teacher told her to be careful what she says to him, because she might be working for him one day. My brother turns to the teacher and goes, "Nah, I don't plan on being a pimp." The class loses it, the teacher has to step out from laughing, and that girl apparently didn't bother my brother for the rest of the year. Story 12. Back in high school, I was in the orchestra. We went on several big national trips each year. One year, a group of upperclassmen were busted for pot in their hotel room. Everyone except one guy was suspended and prohibited to attend future trips. The one guy who wasn't in trouble apparently hid in the shower and played dumb, and they believed him. So a week later, the entire orchestra is practicing with the teaching assistant when our conductor enters the practice room and in front of the entire 114 members of the orchestra, says, "Jason, all your friends ratted you out. They're mad. I'm mad. You played me like a fiddle." "That's what I play," Jason replied, raising his violin. Conductor's face was classic, that's for sure. He wasn't a slouch and his wit was always super fast. I swear that for the briefest moment there was this look of what could only be described as respect. The type of respect that's given after you realize that you'd fallen into a mistake of your own making. Some classic Greek play kinda shit. It occurred so quickly that it would be hard to argue that it had occurred ever at all. A moment later, our conductor was unreadable and very clearly extremely furious. Out, and the conductor was planted to the ground, arm extended perfectly and unnaturally straight to aim the most pissed off pointed finger you've ever seen right at the practice room door. I swear to God that his finger pulsed red, like some cartoon bomb counting down. The rest of him frozen like a horrific gargoyle. You were terrified of him in this state, but you never once feared for your safety. It really was an incredible testament to how well this guy could communicate his emotional state with body language. Jason, like every day at the end of class, calmly packed up his violin into its case, folded and closed his sheet music to deposit it in his backpack, and he stood and calmly walked out. This wasn't done quickly, and the entire process was overseen by a completely silent room of a 100+ preteens and that monolith of enmity and seething wrath who stood affixed and timeless, pointing at the door. Jason ended up getting the same punishment as the rest of them, no more away trips and a combination of suspension and detention. The conductor completely wrote them off one by one. To his credit, he tried to remain a professional and compassionate instructor. He continued to be funny, sarcastic, genuine, and invested in each of those kids' education. He really cared about the success of his students. There's a lot of kids who decide to give up on the orchestra and they just go through the motions. My school forced kids to take band, orchestra, or choir. It's pretty much sunk cost as soon as you enroll in any of those. Worst case is you get forced into choir. No one wanted that. None of the kids dropped out of orchestra, but nearly all of them were sitting near last chair. One of them straightened up completely and started to distance himself from the rest of the group. All of them were tasked with being responsible for all cleanup and organization, library stuff, loading and unloading for trips, which they couldn't attend and would have to complete music appreciation research papers in lieu of performing, and a bunch of other grunt work that used to be volunteer stuff. Our conductor ended up getting a 6-sided die, assigning a number to each kid and rolling it whenever he need anything. Lights out. Roll. Lights on. Roll. Conductor wants a refill on coffee? Roll. Someone's string broke and the replacements are in the storeroom? Roll. Who gets the last size of cheese pizza during the pizza party? Roll. Oh yeah, the pizza party. We had a thing where we would have those somewhat regularly. A celebration for learning a new arrangement or something. It was a fun goal to work towards as a group. Those kids weren't allowed to fully participate. The orchestra would vote on all kinds of special pizzas from various places and our conductor would pay for it. Different sections earned points that could be spent as votes. Anyway, the group of 6 kids would get 2 slices like everyone was guaranteed, but they were forbidden from partaking of any pizza exception there, a plain cheese pizza. Story 13. I was at a friend's house and his drunk parents were fighting, nothing new. Mom yells loud enough for me, friend, and his little brother to hear. Oh, big tough man. Why don't you go tell those boys why you can't even get it up? Dad replies they already know why, and if you go look in the mirror you'll know why too. We laughed so hard she kicked us out of the house. Story 14. I have a twin brother. I'm older. He once told me when I came out, they knew it was a mistake and immediately tried again. I told him he was the buy one get one of equal or lesser value free. There was a fight after that one. Story 15. Winston Churchill, of course. Lady Nancy asked her, Winston, if you were my husband, I'd poison your tea. Churchill, Nancy, if I were your husband, I'd drink it. A poem for this story. When little Winnie met a girl, he said from on his knee, I'll give this marriage thing a whirl, 'cause you're the one for me. And so it was the two were wed. But Winnie loathed his wife. This marriage fucking sucks, he said. I hate my fucking life. But Winnie woke one fated day to tea and cyanide. He said, I'll drink it anyway. And Winnie fucking died. Story 15. Mr. Faraday, your demonstration is very interesting, but for what purpose does demonstrating that electricity and magnetism are related serve? I'm not sure, sir, but no doubt one day you'll find a way to tax it. Alleged interaction of a politician and James Faraday, who discovered and demonstrated the link between electricity and magnetism and consequently the electric motor, an entire basis for the power stations we all use every day. Story 16. Woman I work with, but don't like, was in a mood one morning. Male colleague comes in, after putting up with her for a bit, looks at her and says, Are you on your period or something? She turns around and stony-eyed says, I woke up in a pool of blood and if you don't shut the fuck up, you'll end your day the exact same way. Never respected her until then.
Holy hell, that went real quick.
Story 17. An acquaintance of mine got his wife stolen by his best friend after a long secret affair. Few months after the swap, the two men had a face-to-face, at some party they both was invited to. Acquaintance, so, is that used pussy working out for you? Ex-friend, it's not bad when you get past the used part.
Pure murder. Definitely pure murder.
Story 18. So Harvard went to play Dartmouth in soccer or something and all the Harvard guys love lording that they go to Harvard over everyone so they dress to the nines. Harvard guy in a 3-piece suit goes to a urinal next to a Dartmouth guy and they finish about the same time, but the Dartmouth guy is walking straight out the door when the Harvard guy scoffs and says, At Harvard they teach us to wash our hands after we go to the bathroom. The Dartmouth guy stops, barely looks back and says, Yeah, well, at Dartmouth they teach us not to piss on our hands. Story 19. One of my roommates my freshman year of college, fall 2004, was dating Shia LaBeouf. Her father was a movie producer and they met on the set of The Greatest Game Ever Played. Shia visited campus several times, mostly to whisk her off in a limo to spend the weekend with him in Boston, but at one point he joined us at a bonfire on campus. She introduced him to people, including a girl in our class named Ursula. Shia, Ursula? Like that fat bitch from The Little Mermaid? Ursula, Shia LaBeouf? That little shit from the Disney Channel? Shia had no response. Story 20. My parents are both deaf, so when they do speak they tend to sound different than what most people are used to. Back in high school, this one kid in my group of friends used to always make fun of my mom for that. He would mock and imitate her talking. It was well known in our group that said kid's mom had actually passed away when he was younger. So one day around lunchtime he decides to make fun of my mother yet again. In front of everyone I responded with, "Would you like to know what your mom sounds like?" 5 seconds of silence. That's because she's dead. Safe to say he shut the hell up after that and never made fun of my parents again. Story 21. I had a coworker who was an asshole to everyone. I had shaved off my mustache on the weekend because I was tired of it. Monday at work, on the loading dock where everyone would hang out, drink coffee and smoke, asshole shows up. He looks at me and says, "You look stupid without a mustache." I took a drag from my smoke and replied, "That may be true, but I can grow it back." You, on the other hand, exhale smoke will always be ugly as fuck. Everyone just roared at him. My supervisor said that was eloquent, yet brutal. I will have to remember it. Story 22. I once heard a drunk guy in a bar when his waitress asked, "What can I get you?" The drunk said, "Honey, I'd love to get in your pants." The waitress told him as she walked away, "No thanks. One asshole in my pants is enough." Story 23. Bill Hicks. For those of y'all who don't know Hicks, he was a stand-up comic known for militant atheism and brutal pessimism, fucking hated fundamental Christianity. So, one night about 3 rednecks were waiting for him in a parking lot after a show where he made a joke about Christians. Rednecks, "Hey buddy, fuck you. We're Christians, we don't like what you said, you piece of shit." Bill Hicks, "Then forgive me." Story 24. So my dad and I go to this gas station, and the 2 people that work there know us well. The old man gave me a free cappuccino once, and the teenager would have a battle with words with us. So we walk in there and the teenager says, "I should have known the devil was coming." My dad responds, "It's about time I got recognized." Story 25. This little bully kid from a rough family moved in around the corner from us, and one day he was giving my 10-year-old son shit and pushing him around. The bully kid said to my son, "You've got a little dick," and my boy ripped back, "It's bigger than your future." Fucking ouch. I was so proud. Thanks for watching.